Hello. Do you hear me? Good
Yes.
afternoon.
Yes.
Let's have a sound check. Let's all.
This link don't get the translation model. Is it right? Is it the good link?
The technical people will handle it just in a minute. I'm getting to them to handle it, okay? They'll bring the language translation.
Okay, thank you, Mimi. Thank you.
Hi everyone, please can you hear me?
Yes, Coyote.
Sound check. Okay, thank you.
Can you do some
Mosaic-
check for me, Coyote? Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure, I can hear you. Sure.
Okay, great. I think that we had Mary Uduba a while ago telling us she was arranged for the translation.
Yeah, I've prompted them. I think.
Okay.
Sunday,
Good
can you
afternoon,
assign the translators? I can see the translators in the house. Please, can the button be enabled, please?
Yeah, yes, I'm doing it. Just give me a minute.
Okay, so I think while that is done, maybe we can take our photograph. That would be useful for reporting. I can see Dr. Kosi is already in. Mr. Eric also in.
Yes, I'm here.
And so I think we can go ahead with the photograph. I'm going to undo that. Okay, it's like I'm only seeing an empty background. Okay, now we have Mr. Eric. Let me also turn on mine. Okay, so if you are able to turn on your video, please do so now.
Viano speaking. Can I be assigned
Yes,
as interpreter, please?
Sunday is going to do that in a jiffy.
Hello. Okay, thank you, madam.
Hello, Kayode, can you hear me? I just
Yes,
want to.
I can. Yes, you are
Ah,
loud and clear. Yeah, loud and
thank
clear.
you. Hi, Kosi. Yeah.
Hello,
that's-
please, can we text the language?
Okay, I think that is very essential too. Maybe we have to.
Just in English booths. Can you hear me? Eviano speaking.
Yes,
English, I can hear you. I can
I
hear
can
you.
hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I test also French?
Yes, can we test French, please?
Bonsoir, comment est-ce que vous allez? Vous m'entendez?
Okay, I can hear you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, fine.
But I'm not assigned yes as interpreter.
Sunday, can you do that, please?
Sunday is our technical support.
Yes,
Yes.
we have three interpreters here.
Okay, Sunday, you don't make your camera.
Okay, okay, let me open my camera. Can you see me now?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Sunday.
Hi. Hello.
Hey, good afternoon, guys. How are
We're
you?
supposed to take panelist photo before.
South Africa Internet Governance Forum. We're on to the session on digital inclusivity. My name is Inye Kemaponta. I am going to be the moderator for this session, but I'm also the coordinator, the Nigerian coordinator. Happy to. Once again, welcome. We will start the program with a short opening speech by the chair for the AFICTA in Africa, Thabo Ashigani. He's here now on the call. Just take 2 minutes to speak to the audience on the call. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Much appreciated for that introduction, and welcome to everyone who is on the call. I hope at the end of the day, we will have much heated discussions around this very important topic, which is on exploring user connectivity, looking at this data inclusivity. And I think the key aspect here is to look at this from a user's perspective, and make sure that we are actually moving into a space where we are walking in the shoes of the user, and the solutions that are meted out there, they speak directly to the user. And this is going to be taken within, I think, as Inye will actually describe later on, in 2 parts. There's 2 parts, questions that they've been put on the table, and is to make sure that we are looking at how we are mobilizing the users to contribute to the policies, and also how do we actually make sure that we get services. How do we encourage them to do that? Very critical topic of discussions, and I think the panel that's going to be involved will shed some great light into this, and this is at the heart of what we as AFICTA believes in, which is making sure that we actually make this dream of a digital a world to be for everyone, and everyone gets it to experience it without leaving anyone behind. It's very critical that that is the case.
Sorry, Tabu, your microphone is off. Could you turn it on and conclude?
Yes, I don't know, did you lose me somewhere?
Yes, briefly, with some latency. Lost you briefly, but if you've ended, that's
Oh,
fine.
yes. I hope a large part of what I said, maybe it was audible to everyone.
Yes,
Yes.
excellent. Most parts. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Tabu, for
I just
the
wanted to
opening.
give it back to you, Inye, and much appreciated for giving me the platform to introduce our brief introduction from AFICTA. We appreciate you and everyone who's in this session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Chair, for the opening. We'll go now straight to the issue. And you'd already mentioned that it will be exploring user connectivity as a content. And we do have two panelists on the call. Third may join us if he's able to later on. And we'll go on to them now. It is my own custom to ask panelists to briefly introduce themselves. So I would ask Kosi if you would introduce himself briefly, and then go on to Eric, introduce the subject matter for the day. Go first. Okay, Eric.
Okay.
Why not?
Yes, I will go first. So, hi everyone. I'm Mr. Eric Kwam, co-founder of
Allô,
Qualys
toutes mes
Consult-
excuses. Toutes mes excuses.
Okay. Never
okay.
mind.
Oui.
Kosi, let's have Eric.
Bonsoir à tous.
We'll get back to you.
J'espère que vous m'entendez d'où vous êtes.
Yes, we can hear you, interpreter, we can hear
Je
you.
suis
Okay.
Kosi Amesinou, je suis agent de l'administration publique au Bénin. J'interviens aussi dans la communauté, dans plusieurs organisations, notamment dans la gouvernance de l'Internet au niveau de l'Afrique de l'Ouest, et précisément avec l'équipe de la gouvernance de l'Internet du Bénin. Je suis un contributeur, ancien membre, mais de plus en plus, je porte le chapeau de la Fondation africaine d'éthique. Voilà. Voilà un peu le point d'entrée de ma présentation. Il nous a été demandé de vous entretenir sur la portée de l'accès, la question de l'accès vu sous l'angle de
Not
l'adhésion
yet.
de nos...
We're okay with introduction. I will come back to the details. Kosi,
Oui,
it's okay with the introduction. Move on to Eric. I just wanted a brief introduction of yourselves.
ok.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, Eric.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Eric Kwam. I am a board member of AFICTA. I'm also a co-founder and consulting director with Qualys Consulting, a consulting firm based in Senegal and also in Ivory Coast and Togo. So we are into digital transformation and consulting, IT consulting globally, and business process improvement. So we work with many public organizations in West Africa and even in southern part of Africa.
Thank you. Thank you to both of you. Now, here's the background, the context for the session. As you may all know, AFICTA is more like a voice for businesses in ICT. And the burning issue has always been regulation, what policymakers do and do not do. So we have two policy questions that I would like you both to take 5 minutes each, thereabouts, to speak on. Now, I'll start with the first one. The first policy question is, I'll read it outright. Given the fact that a user-centric policy formulation approach is proven to be more efficient, how do we mobilize policymakers and users to take ownership of policy formulation from the perspective of their users? Perspective of their needs, I'm sorry. I'll repeat it so you can get it very clearly. Given the fact that the user-centric policy formulation approach is proven to be more efficient, how do we mobilize policymakers and users to take ownership of policy formulation from the perspective of their own needs? So I hope that's clear. So we will start with you, Eric, since Kosi spoke first. Eric, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I can start. First of all, I would like to give a simple definition of my understanding of user-centered policy making. I just want to say it's intentionally designed and implement with the end user as a co-designer. So when we are talking about user-centered policy making, the user, it's also involved fully in the process as a co-designer. So user here are people who use the service or receive a benefit from the service, or also are impacted by a specific policy. So that is what mean here by user. And that's why they are the center of the policy making process as end user, because of their end user needs. So I want to mention two aspects when we are looking at the ownership of the policy formulation here. First, I will mention the assessment aspect, because we cannot have a kind of a successful policy formulation making if, first of all, we don't start by a clear assessment. So that means we need some specific tools. We need to build some specific tools aligned with the organization or government need here. So to make sure we have a clear assessment at the beginning, because that assessment will be the starting point to define the strategy here. So we can use a clear template and make sure we document all the answer based on some relevant question we can define here, to make sure we also involve all the stakeholders. We get the metrics and we define all the success and measure progress for that. And also the tools we really need to have in front to make sure the implementation is done successfully. So the first aspect here and the starting point should be the assessment. So when the assessment is done clearly by the team, the policy team, it's that is where we can really ensure the successful implementation. Now, the second aspect, it's at the implementation stage. So what do we need to consider here, just to make sure that we are just to make sure the policymaker and the user really take the ownership. So the two aspects here during the implementation, it's what we call the human-centered design discipline. So just to make sure the human-centered design discipline is considered here. It's more like having the user at the center and make sure what we used to call a customer journey, or let us say a user journey. So we need to consider it in the whole implementation, just to make sure no matter in which sector we are trying, if we take the healthcare sector, or let us say maybe the administrative sector, we have to define that journey clearly and make sure the the user, it's at the center of that approach. And just to make sure we have a kind of complementary discipline, we also need to use what we call agile approach. Agile approach mean here, it's not, in general, it's not easy to say we will have the user need and we will just implement it as a big bang. So we need to find a way in the approach to move iteratively and get the user involved at each result, and make sure this is done collaboratively between the user and the policy maker. So having the two approach during the implementation can ensure some success factor for the implementation. So just to resume myself, two aspects are very important here: the assessment and make sure we have the right tool for that. So we have to define. I think for such kind of work, the expert from AFICTA can also help to build some assessment tool depending on the kind of organization we are looking for here. And at the implementation stage, two important aspects need to be considered. Make sure we have a human-centric design discipline approach, and we also have a what we call agile manifesto to make sure the two when we build the approach based on those two discipline, we can ensure the success, and we can also guarantee the ownership and the ownership from policymaker, but also from user. So those are the input I can give at this stage. Maybe during the question, we can also discuss some other point.
Or even better, I think I might have 2 minutes to offer you later on to drill down more specifically on how really we can get policymakers to do all of those things you've outlined. Excellent points you have, but my question before I let you go is for you to think a little more deeply. How do we ensure that all of those things you've mentioned are done? For example, think about that. I'll get back to you. Let's go to now to also intervene with his own perspective on the subject. So see, if you're ready, the mic is already turned on, so please proceed.
Merci beaucoup, monsieur le modérateur. La mise en place des politiques centrées sur l'utilisateur, je crois que c'est un concept assez novateur, mais qui n'est pas aussi nouveau que ça. Il est intégré à toutes nos planifications depuis des lustres. L'utilisateur, par défaut, c'est monsieur tout le monde, c'est vous et moi. Chaque citoyen ne peut pas se retrouver à la table de décision pour décider de l'orientation qu'il faut donner pour le pays. Donc, il y a des grands groupes, des lobbies. Ils viennent de la société civile, ils viennent du monde de la recherche, ils viennent du monde des affaires, ils viennent aussi de l'intérieur de l'administration publique qui s'organisent, qui planifient des points de vue au regard de leur vécu et de leur réalité en fonction du sujet qui doit être abordé. S'il s'agit d'une planification globale, c'est assez large. Il faut aller dans tous les sens dans un premier temps au niveau plus bas, mais plus on monte dans la chaîne, ça s'affine et des décisions se prennent et des options se dégagent. On ne peut pas tout faire à la fois. Donc, restons dans l'environnement numérique, par exemple, pour regarder de près les situations de comment les choses se passent dans notre environnement. Généralement, les utilisateurs ont leur regard de l'environnement numérique, mais il revient aux politiques, sur la base de son vécu personnel et sur la base des retours d'informations qui viennent du terrain, de réunir des personnes avisées autour d'une table pour affiner le besoin essentiel de l'environnement et de le mettre dans un document qu'on appelle document de politique du secteur. Ce document de politique du secteur, il est validé à plusieurs étapes avec la société civile pour qu'il puisse avoir la clarté de donner le point de vue de l'utilisateur final de façon holistique, avec le secteur privé, parce que la mise en œuvre, la politique est une chose, mais la mise en œuvre, c'est monsieur tout le monde. Le secteur privé le met en œuvre, l'État met en œuvre des partis, mais le monde associatif aussi met en place des partis. Donc, si ce n'est pas ensemble que chacun se retrouve dans le document de politique qui est balisé pour le pays, après, il y a un ensemble d'interprétations où on ne sait pas exactement qui a fauté. Mais globalement, dans un processus de mise en place de politique, chacune des parties prenantes est intégrée. Quand on intègre l'ensemble des parties prenantes, quand on prend par exemple le processus de mise en place du fonds du service universel dans tous nos pays, c'est du ressort d'une décision mondiale de mettre en place un fonds de service universel pour permettre l'adhésion de ceux qui n'ont pas accès à la ressource numérique, au contenu et aussi aux infrastructures. Mais dans la pratique, comment ça se passe dans nos différents pays? C'est bâti. De pays en pays, il y a des stratégies qui diffèrent. Il y a une orientation mondiale, mais chaque pays a sa réalité, a ses spécificités. Quand je prends les pays de notre région, la plupart de nos pays ont mis en place un fonds géré par des structures publiques. Il y a d'autres environnements où c'est des structures multi-acteurs, où il y a le privé, il y a le public et il y a l'associatif qui sont réunis et il y a un patron de cette entité-là qui décide de comment on gère les fonds. Mais la gestion des fonds est une chose, mais l'argent en lui-même n'est pas suffisant. Ce qu'on doit faire avec l'argent doit être déterminé ensemble, doit être affiné ensemble. Je crains, sauf erreur de ma part, que les acteurs du secteur privé qui sont à la manœuvre de l'organisation de cet atelier ne pourraient peut-être pas me dire le contraire. Ils n'ont pas toujours le détail de comment les ressources du Fonds du service universel est utilisées. Les fournisseurs d'accès Internet, les opérateurs GSM, ils ne peuvent pas dire avec précision, oui, on a donné nos ressources, puisque ces ressources, ça vient d'eux. On a donné nos ressources et on a dit exactement dans quel canal et sur quel type d'activité on doit pouvoir faire financer nos ressources de service universel. Il ne peut pas le dire avec certitude. Parce que pour la plupart d'entre eux, quand les discussions se font, ils sont plus dans leur business individuel, que dans le regard que l'on pourrait avoir sur cette ressource-là qui doit impacter leurs activités spécifiques. Ils n'ont pas toujours ça comme priorité. Donc, c'est les associations des hommes d'affaires, c'est les associations des gens qui sont du secteur de la société civile et autres, qui regardent cela de près avec le gouvernement et qui disent, ah oui, nous on a besoin que telle partie de la ressource serve peut-être à nous donner la connectivité Internet dans telle zone de notre pays qui n'est pas du tout couverte. Ça, ce sont des priorités qui touchent directement l'utilisateur. Ce n'est pas l'État dans ces 4 murs qui décide de tout seul, non. C'est un cadrage qui est mis en place avec la contribution de l'ensemble des parties prenantes. Maintenant, la mise en œuvre, c'est l'État qui met en œuvre progressivement. Il revient aux différentes parties prenantes de demander des comptes. Si les comptes sont demandés, c'est bon. Si les comptes ne sont pas demandés, l'État lui-même a mis en place un mécanisme d'autocontrôle. Il y a des entités à l'intérieur de l'État qui s'autocontrôlent et qui peuvent chercher à savoir comment les ressources sont utilisées, à quelle fin les ressources ont été utilisées et si les ressources ont été effectivement utilisées pour les besoins initiaux. Ça, c'est un peu l'environnement de comment les politiques se sont mises en place dans notre écosystème ouest-africain et comment est-ce que la mise en œuvre s'opère également. Voilà le tour d'éléments préliminaires que je voudrais donner.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. See, I see that you're quite strong on seeing that policies are implemented. Fantastic. But I'd like you to have a return, a comeback on specifically the issue of what the citizens need to do by themselves to ensure that they are part of the formulation of the policies even before implementation. How do citizens, users, get involved directly in policy development, policy formulation before even the implementation? Simplify that process, but I'll come back to you. I'll just give 2 minutes to Eric.
Ça, c'est le travail de la société civile. Ce travail de fond, c'est la société
I'll give you
civile
time
qui
to
doit
explain it.
le...
You see?
Oui.
I'll come back to you, see? So you would get it very very simply so we can capture it. Let Eric speak about what can be done to ensure that policymakers, who are mostly government people, are able to do all of the things you've outlined, Eric, earlier on when you spoke the first time. Take 2 minutes.
Okay, first of all, we have to consider the governance aspect. You know, if at the governmental level, we don't have structure for that, it's definitely we make things difficult. So we have to look at the governance aspect with clear responsibilities at the level of government. Sometimes it can be a particular agency, can make we can really facilitate it. In many countries, like some English-speaking country like Nigeria or Ghana, you have NIDDA, you have agency like that. In Senegal, you have what they call ADIE. In some country, Ivory Coast. So you have such agency everywhere where we can easily work to make to ease the formulation of those policy. Other aspect here, except the fact that we have to make sure at the government level, clear responsibility, maybe a clear structure is, has that kind of mandate to ease, because the structure need to be a kind of structure that, in terms of interaction, they can interact with all the government parties, because that should not be a specific ministry, but a kind of agency we know in a country can interact with all the agency, all the structure at the government level to facilitate that, and also interact with the user representative at any level. My colleague mentioned société civile, what we call a civil society, but we need to find a way to have a kind of committee at the national level with maybe a kind of a main agency to facilitate, but the committee at the national level should, we should have that agency to conduct the committee, but you have members from everywhere, even for civil society.
I must thank you now, Eric. I must thank you for the quick intervention on those issues. Throw this open in the moment to members in the audience and see what other points they are going to add. I hear you're talking about having a structure, an agency that specifically be like a go-between that coordinates all of those both sides to ensure that things are done properly and even be part of the national committee. That's fine. Let's return now to C, and I wanted him to elaborate a bit on this discussion about the civil society. What specifically should the citizens do to get involved in policy formulation? We're on about CSOs, civil society organizations. Could you elaborate in just 2 minutes? Because we need to throw this open now.
Merci beaucoup, monsieur le modérateur. Il faut dire que l'utilisateur final n'est pas une voie perdue. L'utilisateur final a un répondant, c'est l'acteur de la société civile. De plus en plus, on demande à tous les acteurs de la société civile de se spécialiser. Une société civile ne peut pas tout faire. Je ne peux pas être spécialiste du secteur du numérique et en même temps être spécialiste du secteur de l'eau. Ça n'a pas de sens. Il faut apprendre à rester dans un secteur. Et quand vous êtes dans un secteur, vous portez la voix de l'utilisateur final de votre région, de votre pays, sur des questions spécifiques. Vous avez la possibilité de faire des mécanismes comme Lab à Lab pour collecter la réalité de chaque environnement que vous avez sous contrôle. Vous pouvez réunir les jeunes, les femmes, en fonction des catégories socio-économiques et socio-culturelles, réunir les gens et demander leur point de vue, les documenter et ensuite les porter vers le pouvoir public qui a été mandaté pour s'occuper du bien public, du bien commun. On ne peut pas, en tant que société civile, faire le travail de l'État. Non, ce n'est pas possible. On doit porter la voix de l'utilisateur final auprès de l'État, mais pas en venant de façon orale faire du discours dilatoire sans proposition concrète. Il faut venir avec de la documentation sur laquelle on peut voir des éléments clairs où l'État vous dira, oui, telle chose, on est à mesure de prendre cela en charge sur telle ou telle ligne, telle autre chose, on ne pourra pas le faire, ou telle chose, on pourra le faire, mais cela serait projeté sur 2 ans, 3 ans, 4 ans, ainsi de suite. Ce qu'on peut faire tout de suite, on le dira, une planification peut se faire ensemble de façon holistique. Mais c'est le travail de la société civile spécialisée. N'importe qui ne peut pas porter n'importe quelle voix auprès de
All
l'État.
right. You put it clearly on the desk of civil society organizations. Thank you, Kusi. Let's now have an open mic. Members of the audience who are on the call now to please pose some questions or answer the policy question itself. I have seen some chats. I will read one. And it says, for users' interventions, most of the time, they are gathered in consumers' associations, but they are not strong. This is from Wolali, I'm sorry. Okay, let's take note of that and have others comment or ask questions. You could just simply turn on your mic and speak. Press the raise hand button. Anyone willing to speak, ask a question? At this time, I have 5 minutes, a little more for this session of Q&A. Well, consumer associations are not strong, but that's going to be their job to ensure that things are done in the manner that Eric has outlined. If he's saying that we should also have civil society organizations take on the role. They come as associations, consumer associations actually. CSOs are free to form the associations. They represent the citizens themselves. Another one saying sometimes government can mandate institutions to collect the request from consumers. At the end of the day, it is not taking into account. Okay, so the question is, how do we think of this? Are there any more comments? Using the Abdul Karim, your hand is up. 30 seconds. And then we'll take Vincent Olufuye. Abdul Karim first. Yes. Okay, thank you for the feedback. I think I have some latency. I will speak a bit more slowly. Am I coming okay now? Okay, great. So I said the first person to speak now will be Abdul Karim. And then we'll listen to Olufuye afterwards. Karim, could you turn your mic on? Okay, he isn't able to do it yet. We will wait for him. Listen to Olufuye at this time.
Okay, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. So greetings. Let me Mary Uduma, our chairperson, coordinating for and for the Africa. Thank you so much for the chair. I just want to take a cue from the comment of Yan, the comment that strong. What's true, really? You really want to make, because users panelists are spoken, that benefit most is if it is used, and I would know that it's the use depend upon, they have to find a way to organize them. So to be strong, you know, you could start wherever you are, start small and see that use every little opportunity. I believe Africa can also help in this, help coordinate at the local level. Coordinator is the coordinator. So I believe you can reach him of Africa. They can help provide ideas on the how to do it in Nigeria as well as at the local level. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Yeah, I would highlight that a bit, but I want to ask the host, Joshua, to please turn on the microphone of Abdul Karim so he can have his intervention. Could you turn the mic of Abdul Karim so he can speak? Have we lost him? Unfortunately. Okay, yes, any more, but I just wanted to mention that Dr. Luffy is spot on. We need to get organized. We can't be quiet when policies are being formulated. We must get organized and have some advocacy, either in the form of proposals or in fact, even training, education, not in the strict sense of going into a classroom, but education of policymakers. We could host workshops, for instance, and call policymakers to listen to the needs of the people and get them to understand what they need to do. I think that is suited, as you said, for this kind of intervention at the national level. But let's hear more, one or two more before we go to the second question. Anybody else? For me, the question really calls for getting organized as citizens, as users, at different forums, different levels. If policies impact directly, some groups where we have feedback process to policy formulators to include us in policy formulation rather than keep quiet and watch things. Anyone else? I'm just giving time to comment or question. If there is none, we'll come now to the second policy question. Thank you so much for the first policy question. The second one is also related, and it says, what innovative or emerging practices can be implemented to increase the demand and consumption of indigenous digital services and solutions? Once again, what innovative and emerging practices can be implemented to increase the demand and consumption of indigenous digital services and solutions? You see, I would like to start with you. I have 10 minutes for the question. I offer my first 5 to you. Are you ready? Could you turn on your mic? Host, please help turn on the microphone of Koti so he can intervene. Otherwise, I would ask Eric to begin. Then we'll come back to Koti. Eric, are you ready? You need to turn on your mic also. Great.
Yeah.
Allô, c'est bon maintenant?
Okay, so let Kosi.
Kosi is ready now. All right, thanks for yielding time to him. Koti, please proceed.
OK, je crois que nous avons un défi de qualité d'Internet dans notre région. C'est déjà un premier élément qu'il faut régler. Le défi de la qualité d'Internet. Là, le Zoom que nous sommes en train de faire nous montre déjà les éléments de faiblesse sur lesquels on doit beaucoup travailler. Notre société est fortement orale. On doit garder cela à l'esprit. Notre société n'écrit pas beaucoup. Notre société ne lit pas beaucoup. Mais notre société parle beaucoup, aime les vidéos, aime lire les vidéos, aime lire les audios. Nous devons en tenir compte dans nos innovations. Et cela implique aussi quoi? Une forte utilisation de la bande passante. Donc, on doit démocratiser la disponibilité de l'Internet dans nos régions. Les data qu'on vend un peu partout là, c'est trop cher pour le pouvoir d'achat de nos populations. C'est trop cher. Dans nos sous-régions, l'Internet coûte trop cher, trop cher. On doit rendre l'Internet libre, disponible. Nous avons plusieurs câbles, atterrissement de câbles à fibre optique sur nos côtes. On les utilise à peine à 15%, 20% et même 5% pour certains câbles. C'est inadmissible, c'est l'argent du contribuable qui est utilisé pour avoir accès à ces ressources-là. Et c'est le contribuable qui paye d'une façon ou d'une autre. Quand les grands groupes qui sont en avant ne parviennent pas à payer, c'est la garantie souveraine de l'État qui est utilisée pour payer ces fonds-là. Donc, chacun de nos États concourt au paiement de ces fonds. Quand les entreprises qui ont souscrit ne parviennent pas, ce sont nos États qui payent. Et quand on dit l'État paye, c'est chacun de nous, citoyens de la CEDEAO, c'est chacun de nous qui payons cela. Donc, on doit en tenir compte et demander à nos États de libéraliser la disponibilité de la ressource Internet. Si la ressource Internet est libéralisée, si elle est démocratisée, nous verrons nos jeunes qui n'ont pas d'emploi, qui sont dans nos maisons, qui ont fait des formations, même des formations techniques, mais qui sont à la maison, des gens qui sont des ingénieurs informaticiens, mais qui sont à la maison. C'est inadmissible parce qu'ils n'ont pas de repère devant. Les initiatives qu'ils peuvent avoir.
You have a minute left.
Oui, les initiatives qu'ils peuvent avoir.
One more minute.
Par la disponibilité d'Internet. Rendons Internet disponible et les innovations vont aller de pair. Merci.
Okay, thank you. Kosi, you're putting the burden on government. You're clearly saying they should pay for it. But that's availability. What about demand for it? Are citizens demanding for it, for those services? Do they have need for it? What drives their demand? What drives that demand? I will give you another minute later on, after Eric has spoken, to see if you have any ideas on demand drivers. What would make citizens want to consume those products on their own? So Eric, over to you now. Let's have your intervention. 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think for me, in terms of best practice, we have to look at it we have to look several layers. First of all, the process aspect. You know, one of the key issues we have in all our, in our administration or organization, it's related to process. So most of the time, processes are not clear. So I think in terms of process improvement, there is a lot to do. We have to put in place some key practice to make sure we help those our organization to have clear clear process on their to perform their activities. The other aspect also related to process is the service-oriented approach. You mentioned the demand, and you mentioned so most of the time, even the organization don't know exactly what are the kind of service they provide, and user at the end of user also on his end don't really know exactly what is the structure of the service. He has to raise his demand. So the service-oriented approach is a real problem. So that is another aspect where we really need to work and see how we can assist our organization in terms of formulating the right approach between the demand and the service provider. So the other aspect, I think today when we look the data is also a key, a real issue. As you know, the data is the raw material when we talk about the service. So if the data, and most of the time the data issue is real in our environment. So we have most of the time the issue in terms of integrity, the issue in terms of let us say the issue in terms of usability of data. And that bring us in what we call today the Open Data Initiative. So the Open Data Initiative in our environment should be a real discipline, because today, as you can see in the same government, you will see sometimes the main data can be used differently, can be formulated differently, and this is not making the demand clear, or even the end user don't really know or is really confused about the services, because the data supporting the services sometimes can be, he can get it from various sources, and most of the time he will reach different services, and they will ask for the same data in a different way. It's very, very complicated for end user, and this is a real issue we need to solve in our administration. And I think my colleague mentioned also the infrastructure. I'm not going to touch that aspect, but I think my colleague mentioned it, the infrastructure aspect with the automation and the internet infrastructure and network infrastructure in our countries.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Thank you. Yes, Kosi had talked about infrastructure, and that's a valid point. You wanted government to spend more and putting out infrastructure, but I wanted to ask him, and I'm coming back to you now, Kosi, to think a bit deeper into what I would call demand drivers. Even if you had infrastructure, even if you had broadband available, what's the guarantee that the ordinary citizen would access them voluntarily and willingly? What would he be looking for? What would make him want to go onto the internet? That would be my kind of demand driver. You're giving some thought to it when I give you, you might want to take a minute to mention one or two such demand drivers. Otherwise, we'll open the floor for questions and comments. There are quite a few already on the chat box.
Alors, oui, je pense que la demande, la demande de l'utilisateur, il faut l'avoir à plusieurs échelles. Quand je suis une administration, je suis aussi un utilisateur. Ma demande en tant qu'utilisateur, c'est pour le travail collaboratif par défaut. Donc, il faut que la ressource soit disponible pour permettre un travail collaboratif fluide. Mais de plus en plus, l'administration offre des services aux populations. Au Bénin, vous avez la possibilité d'avoir votre casier judiciaire de n'importe où. Si Internet n'est pas disponible pour que vous puissiez avoir votre casier judiciaire en ligne, c'est inutile. C'est un service offert à la population. Mais il faut qu'Internet soit disponible pour que le monsieur du fin fond de Cotonou ou du fin fond du nord du Bénin, il puisse demander son casier judiciaire en ligne sans se préoccuper de ce que, ah non, et ça fait 2 jours, quand je clique, je ne parviens pas à télécharger tel fichier que je dois joindre. Mais s'il faut joindre un fichier, il ne parvient pas à joindre le fichier. Comment il fera pour avoir la ressource? Donc, si l'Internet n'est pas suffisant pour qu'il parvienne à joindre le fichier, il ne pourra pas avoir le service. Ça, c'est un besoin précis, ça. Mais mettons même de côté cela. Nos sociétés sont fortement orientées sur le bavardage. Il faut qu'on ait le courage de le dire, le bavardage. C'est ça qui a fait développer les réseaux sociaux dans nos environnements. WhatsApp, ce n'était pas prévu pour être un réseau social. Mais parce que c'est un outil de bavardage, nous sommes tous tombés là-dedans. Ça nous permet de faire circuler des vidéos, des audios, et même ceux qui savent ni lire ni écrire sont spécialistes de WhatsApp aujourd'hui. Dans nos champs, les gens peuvent utiliser WhatsApp aujourd'hui pour parler à leurs enfants qui sont à Cotonou et même parler avec leurs parents de quand est-ce qu'ils doivent planter le maïs, quand est-ce qu'ils doivent arroser et trouver des engrais pour le maïs, ainsi de suite. Ça, c'est la technologie qui est mise à la disposition de nos populations. Écrire, c'est juste quelques kilos que ça va prendre. Mais quand tu vas envoyer de la vidéo, ça va prendre beaucoup de mégas. Donc, c'est important d'en tenir compte.
All right. I think so. You have made many points, and thank you, both of you. I would like to turn the microphone now to comments and questions from anyone on the call at this time. I have a few comments on the chat box. I'll read them out for our benefit, and then we can take more comments or questions. I think Enoch is saying government provided services usually enjoy monopoly. Government provided services usually enjoy monopoly. How can consumers and users demand better quality of service when there are no alternatives to switch to? All right, that's a question. If you wanted to answer it, you could, but only after I've read all of it. Any of you could answer, but just take note now. Let me read the rest. And it says, example, government-run web servers are unstable, but government websites are not permitted to be hosted on private servers. So Enoch is giving an example of his first question. And then Chidebere says, our respected governments have a lot to do as regards data policy and data democratization. Data policy and democratization of the internet. Well, it's putting the burden on government. Then another question from Iatefe Olale says, most of the time, our African governments restrain the accessibility of internet due to security reasons. There are countries where the internet is cut during polls. And he says the last example is how Nigeria restricted access to Twitter. How can we promote internet qualities and at the same time restrict the access? Okay, so either of you can so just make 30 seconds comment on the questions. Who wants to go first? Eric.
Yeah, I think those are really, really valid points. And unfortunately, we cannot go around this without the responsibility of government first. So we really need to prepare some clear note for our government to help them move forward. So the issue of web services, because he took a very valid example, and you can see today most of our government system are working in silo. And one of the key problems the user are getting at the end of the day, it's the lack of the integration between all those governmental systems, even when the process is still moving end to end. So for the same process, you will find yourself interacting with many different systems from one service to another. So that is a real problem we need to solve in our administration. And I think one of the solution is to make sure we have a very strong structure at the level of government to facilitate all this to enable the digital transformation in the society. So if at the level of government we don't have a good governance and we don't have a strong structure for that, it will be very difficult. So now for many of our countries, we have structure, but they don't have ideas. So I think it's the role of organization like AFICTA or many other civil society in our country, in Benin, everywhere, to make some key suggestion or provide some paper to those agencies, because I am aware that most of those agencies, some of those agencies, they are there, they have a roadmap, but they don't know what to clearly develop in that roadmap. Maybe sometime because the mandate was not clear. So some of the time, I think it's our role as African Association to help them to provide some very, very important input as a continental organization to those government. I think AFICTA can also work to have some tools to assist or to provide some of those tools to government to help them maybe move forward in terms of capability assessment, or let us say, as we mentioned before, even the user centricity assessment or the level of digitalization in the country. I think for those one, using AFICTA capabilities with African Union, those international organizations, maybe we can help our country. So we may not look that one at a country level, but let's look at it international level and see how we can use the opportunity given by the international organization like this specific forum, like African Union, like World Bank, like African Development Bank, and so on, to see how we can push at the country level.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Eric. And then would you also make your closing comments now? See, responding to those issues or adding any more points you might have.
Allô? Me recevez? Oui, en fait, j'ai vu les questions, elles sont plus ou moins sensibles. La Fondation africaine d'éthique, African Institute Foundation, a compris cet enjeu de sensibilisation des utilisateurs. Parce que quand on coupe un service Internet, la responsabilité est partagée à beaucoup d'égards. Elle peut être totalement liée à l'État, mais elle peut être aussi liée au reflet que l'utilisateur a de la ressource et de la façon dont l'utilisateur fait un mauvais usage de la ressource. Dans tous les cas de figure. Au niveau africain, les associations se sont mises ensemble et ont pu convaincre l'Union africaine de la mise en place de la Déclaration africaine des droits et libertés de l'Internet. Combien sont nos États qui l'ont adopté aujourd'hui? Au nom de cette déclaration des droits et libertés de l'Internet, aucun État africain n'est autorisé à couper Internet ou à couper un service Internet. Mais est-ce que nos parlementaires le savent? Est-ce qu'au jour d'aujourd'hui, nos parlementaires le savent? Qu'il y a une déclaration africaine qui interdit nos États de faire ça. Il y a plusieurs techniques pour amener l'utilisateur à changer d'approche et à changer de paradigme. Nos environnements où on ne comprend pas le bon usage des ressources et on l'utilise à tort à travers, conduisant nos gouvernements à couper Internet ou couper des services au nom de la sûreté, il est indispensable qu'on organise beaucoup de sensibilisation à tous les niveaux. Sensibilisation pour les parlementaires, sensibilisation pour le gouvernement, mais sensibilisation aussi pour le grand public. Voilà un peu ce que je voudrais donner comme approche de réponse, en disant à nos concitoyens de la CEDEAO de rester sereins. L'Internet, Covid nous a montré que Internet est devenu autant important pour le gouvernement que l'utilisateur aujourd'hui. Tout ce que le gouvernement faisait avant et demandait à nos citoyens d'aller dans les centres de santé, d'aller dans les mairies et autres, il nous demande aujourd'hui de pouvoir le faire en ligne. Donc, le gouvernement comprend beaucoup plus d'importance d'Internet aujourd'hui que chacun de nous réunis. Voilà le message que je voudrais passer.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to thank both of you, Eric and Kusi, for your wonderful interventions. And in a kind of summary, I think we've been able to touch on the issues affecting both questions. The first question about how to take ownership, both sides. Policy formulation needs government and those policy impacts on them. They need to come together in some form. Well, Eric has outlined, or you did outline, a number of actions, but also referring to, talked about the responsibility of government also, and then that of civil society organizations. So this is where AFICTA, in my opinion, is relevant. Advocacy issues, putting up proposals, getting interested in the process. AFICTA is quite suited for that purpose. The second policy question, which dealt with innovative ways to drive demand. She talked about getting the structures up. And then Eric, you also talked about putting government services online. Service-driven approach. Yes, citizens will be glad to consume services if they are available online. Okay, and if those services touch their lives, they will go for broadband. They will find a way to pay for it. And if they can't pay, they will limit the number of people who really intervene for. Take the issue of telemedicine, for instance. You know that you can talk to your doctor at a smartphone. You're going to get a smartphone, so you don't have to go to the hospital directly. So demand drivers are those things that affect the needs of the users, provided by the government, simply by putting services to citizens online. Citizens will then go to those places to get those services. That's the manner of summary. I thank you both for your interventions, and I thank the leadership of the West Africa IGF who are here, also the leadership of AFICTA who are on the call. I thank you all both especially for coming onto the call. And ladies and gentlemen, We have to bring this session to a close. Thank you so much, everyone. Good afternoon from Nigeria.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. That this an insightful session. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And on behalf of the West African Chair of AFICTA, I'd like to say again, thank you especially to everyone who was able to make it. Please continue with the West Africa idea as it runs on. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you, technical team. Thank you,
Thank you.
translators.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Victor. Thank you, leadership
Your
of
insights.
Africa.
Thank you.
We are grateful.
Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Sunday, if you can share your screen, show us the sponsors, please.